Dr. Friedman and Walter Williams go back in history, and they take a look at a situation where America was empty, where we didn't have anything like the sophisticated industrial economy we have today, but had a much more agricultural and rural kind of economy. And of course, when the impoverished peasants of Europe, my ancestors and most of our ancestors, except for the slaves, which is another situation, but when these people came from Europe and came to a wide open continent with the most fertile soil then available to anyone in the world, naturally there was progress. And I or any of us would be mad to deny progress. But as that developed, and as population increased, and as we moved into a much more sophisticated industrial economy, we moved then into the situation in the 1930s. Or earlier than that, at the end of the century, as some of the more skilled jobs came along. The labor movement didn't happen by accident, didn't happen because there wasn't a need there. The results of this development, even with all the wealth available in America, the results of this development was that many working people were not having anything like, by standards of civilization or whatever, anything like their fair share in this progress.
Now, you're arguing that in a free market for labor, everyone benefits. Does that mean that you would favor abolition of all immigration restrictions?
The situation of immigration restrictions really has to do with the question of a welfare state, as I say in the film. I would favor completely free immigration in a society which does not have a welfare system. With a welfare system of the kind we have, you have the problem that people immigrate in order to get welfare, not in order to get employment. You know, it's a very interesting thing. If you had asked anybody, before 1914 the U.S. had no immigration restrictions whatsoever. I'm exaggerating a little bit. There were some immigration restrictions on Orientals, but it was essentially mainly free. If you ask anybody, any American economic historian, was that a good thing for America? Everybody will say, yes, it was a wonderful thing for America that we had free immigration. If you ask anybody today, should we have free immigration today? Almost everybody will say no. What's the difference? I think there's only one difference, and that is that when we had free immigration, it was immigration for jobs in which everybody benefited. The people who were already here benefited because they got complementary workers, workers who could work with them, make their productivity better, enable them to develop and use the resources of the country better. But today, if you have a system under which you have essentially a governmental guarantee of relief in case of distress, you have a very, very real problem.
This is true of every Western industrialized country.
And that's why today, under current circumstances, you cannot, unfortunately, have free immigration. Not because there's anything wrong with free immigration, but because we have other policies which make it impossible to adopt free immigration.
I'd like the other reactions. Is it at all feasible to open the door of the labor market internationally now? Bill Brady?
I would say yes, providing they open the door to us. I think that the door to not only the labor market, the door to all markets should be open, that is, product markets.
My feelings about the undocumented workers or Mexican Americans are inscribed at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. I think that people should have the right to come to this country. Now, those who would say, you know, I hear a number of people saying that, well, the immigrants are contributing to our unemployment problem. And I pointed this out to some people. I said, look, you know, this is the same rhetoric that the Irish use when the blacks are coming up from the north. You know, they're using blacks as scapegoats. They're saying, get those people back where they came from so that because our members can get jobs, you know. Unions were as well doing this. You know, they call them scabs, strike breakers, et cetera, et cetera. So I do not wish for Mexican Americans to become the new scapegoats of our particular national problems. They are not the problem, and our nation benefits to the extent that these people come here and work. And to that extent, so it's kind of good for them to remain illegal aliens as opposed to being legal aliens where they're subject to our welfare program, so that we don't want them to come here to work.
I think that this country cannot have a group of workers to remain outside the framework of our laws and our protections. And as long as we have workers who are attracted to the United States because of the standard of living, and I think minimum wages play a part in that, as part of that attraction. But it seems to me to have undocumented workers without providing either a means of protection for them, and it seems to me we've got to go to a question of providing the amnesty for those generations of workers who have come here over a period of time, now 2, 3, maybe 4 generations. We have to see that they have the same rights and protection of all other workers. And as it stands now, large numbers of them live outside the framework of the laws and statutes that we have on our books.
They do, and the tragedy of the situation is what Walter Williams points out, that as long as they are undocumented and illegal, they are a clear net gain. The nation benefits and they benefit. They wouldn't be here if they didn't. The tragedy is that we've adopted all these other policies so that if we convert them into legal residents, it's no longer clear that we benefit. They may benefit, but it's no longer clear that we do. What Len Williams said before is again a travesty on what was actually going on. The real boost to the trade union movement came after the Great Depression of the 1930s. That Great Depression was not a failure of capitalism. It was not a failure of the private market system, as we've pointed out in another one of the programs in this series. It was a failure of government. It was not the case that somehow or other there was a decline in the conditions of the working class that produced a great surge of unionism. On the contrary, unions have never accounted for more than one out of 4 or 1 out of 5 of American workers. The American worker benefited not out of unions. He benefited in spite of unions. He benefited because there was greater opportunity, because there were people who were willing to invest their money, because there was an opportunity for people to work, to save, to invest. That's still the case today. You say we have to provide him with something or other, Ernest. Who are the we?
We the people.
How do we the people? But how do we the people do it?
We the people provide them the protection by seeing that their safety.
You're talking about the immigrant population.
And occupational health codes that protect the environment that they work in. See that they have civil rights laws that protect their own person. See that they have civil liberties laws that protect them further. We the people of this country provide that protection.
It's so bad. If they don't have, you're kind of painting an image. Why are these people coming? We're not pulling them here by chains.
It's obvious why people come here. There's one of the most wealthy countries in the world.
Gentlemen, don't all talk at once.
So what are you talking about protecting
Why did you leave Little Rock, Arkansas to go to Philadelphia?
It seems to me that it's obvious why.
Would you extend me the courtesy to finish? Look. First thing, let me say the following thing, because there's some basic things that you need to know.
We're going to say the thing I was interrupting. We're going to say 5 more things. I mean, there isn't all afternoon.
Labor unions and minimum wages for that case cannot improve the condition of the working people of a country.
We do it every day.
Because if
we can improve the condition of working people in countries all around the world.
You know what this man?
Every day.
You know what you're telling the audience? You're saying that you can solve the problems in Bangladesh. You can make them a rich country if you tell them to unionize like we are and demand higher wages.
No, I didn't say anything remotely like that.
No, it's productivity that keeps income low.
I come back to my initial question. Why are so many leaving the union?
There aren't very many.
Oh, there are
leaving
too.
the union. I've
given you the statistics.
You think you rhymed off some percentages. I live in the labor movement.
Do you have other percentages?
In or on?
It's true. In, with, and of course they pay me, of course, and I don't have any objection to that at all.
Neither do I.
At least we got you a few minutes ago. We got you to get the labor movement up into this century. And I agree with the observation you made. I agree with the observation you made that the industrial union movement, that there was a union movement, came out of the dirty 30s and out of the Depression and grew, and that was essentially an industrial union movement. But I wonder when I hear your commentary on the film and so on about unions and restricting practices and restricting access to industry and all of this, I don't mean it disrespectfully, but I really
don't mind being disrespectful. It's all right, I'm used to it.
I really wonder if you do understand how the industrial union movement, which is the more recent part of the movement, how it really operates. We're not telling anybody who they have to hire. We're not doing anything about it.